Hi, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and today I'm going to be looking at the first game on ChessTweets.com. And as far as I can tell, I could be wrong, but anyway, so it shows Chess Tweets versus Chess Tweets. So I guess they divided the community here. I don't know. So let's get on with it. Starting out with e4, 5, and this is a typical Ruy Lopez here. Knight f6 here, and now with the move castles, knight takes, and now rook e1, and the Ruy Lopez has been around for, I don't know, maybe 200 years, as long as chess has been played, as far as so it's been around forever. And so this opening, this taking the pawn on e4, was definitely popularized at the top level by Vladimir Kramnik, specifically I believe in his match against Garry Kasparov, and it almost essentially neutralized Kasparov's Ruy Lopez in playing e4, because Kramnik's research was so thorough, and the line just revolves around the move knight d6 and simply defending. And so the Berlin defense is extremely solid and employed by top players today. So it's a very topical line. Well, this game didn't quite follow that line with the knight d6 idea, and we saw rook e1 and knight g5. And well, okay, I think it's kind of a dubious move. It seems a little bit too crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's just too many tactics hanging in the air. And so maybe knight g5. I didn't see anything that quite just won right away. I mean, it seemed to me that takes here and d4, this seemed pretty promising. And what to do with the queen, I'm not quite sure. At any rate, I mean, if you move the queen to g6, that seems to be the most natural move. Possibly just d5 right away. And white is going to get a very good initiative for nothing. Obviously, this doesn't work. So where does the knight go? I mean, this looks pretty horrible. I wouldn't be too happy here. So I don't know. I mean, just food for thought. I like taking the knight. But after knight g5, the chess tweets, let's just say chess tweets versus chess tweets, black chose to play, or white here rather, knight takes e5, and it certainly makes sense, trying to go ahead and directly open lines against the king. And so here, knight e6, this also makes sense, although not entirely, because bishop e7 develops a piece and gets ready to get the king out of the center. And maybe play could have continued d4, possibly takes, and now maybe black is certainly at a disadvantage because of white's lead in development. He's already castled, he's already got the rook out. This bishop's probably going to come back and attack on this b1 h7 diagonal, but at least black is going to get out of the center, and he's going to get his king out and get kind of developed, because, I mean, you got to develop, and you don't want to keep moving the same piece. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 times this knight moves in the opening. No, typically not a good sign if that's what's going on. So knight e6, okay, I mean, it makes sense. Close the diagonal off, or close the file off rather with the knight. And now queen f3 is definitely seems like a good move, but knight takes e5, rook takes, and c6, and black has most likely equalized here. Coming from a bad position, it seems tough for me to recommend anything really, very pressing for white. I mean, maybe bishop c4 is going to run into the direct d5, and bishop a4 doesn't really do too much. Well, it does prevent d5 because of this pin. Food for thought. But let's see, just to be clear here, this pin. So if rook takes, queen takes, doesn't quite work. But so maybe bishop a4 is okay, but even simply just bishop here and maybe go ahead and castle and play g6. And black is maybe even a little tiny bit better. This rook is not entirely so well placed on h5. So a moot point. After queen f3, black blundered with f6. After queen h5 check, g6, and knight takes, it's going to be pretty tough to come back from this. Now, obviously, rook here is probably just going to lose by force to a move like that, or really any move almost. So black chose to take. And after queen takes h8, queen e7. Now it's important. I mean, you never want to give up. I mean, black is down an exchange here. He's down his rook for a, let's see, he's got a knight, and that's it. So he's down a rook and a pawn for a knight. But you never want to give up, and you never know. I mean, people might make mistakes, and if you just resign, you're never going to win a game. So queen takes h8 and queen e7, and now knight c3, eyeing that d5 square. Definitely looks like a good place to put a piece. And knight cd4, get a little development going, sure. Knight d5, eyeing the square, utilizing the pin on the d file. Knight d5 is a good move. Also eyeing this f6 square, to be noted. So these are all weak, and not to mention the file and the material. So queen g7, knight takes e7, definitely seems legitimate. King f7, queen takes, and king takes. And I guess the idea behind, after king takes g7, for black not playing knight takes a8, because it does seem to be the most obvious move, was after takes, you're going to see b6 and bishop b7. And it's going to be a little tough to get the knight out, but I don't know if that's totally accurate. I have to take a little closer look. It seems to be, but I don't know. This pawn here is weak. So if the immediate a4, you're going to see knight here, and this pawn is going to drop. And you don't want to give an exchange back. That fork is not going to be good. So maybe c3, b6, a4, knight d6, possibly a5. Trying to just get the knight out. And if bishop here takes, I don't know. I mean, this is all speculation. So white decided to not mess around with the nonsense. And after king takes g7, knight takes, and d takes. D takes e6. And now bishop d3. Well, something of an interesting move. As, white is, it makes sense. I personally probably would have chose bishop a4 with the idea, maybe here, okay, you don't want to give up the knight for the bishop, but trades are going to help white here, as he's up material. He is up an exchange, which means a rook for a minor piece, and he's also up a pawn. So any kind of trades are going to help, and especially this knight on d4 is very active for black. So bishop d3 seems a little awkward because c3 and d4 is just so natural. Bring this bishop out and establish control of the center. But bishop d3, okay, it makes sense. Guard the bishop, guard the pawn. Bishop d7, sure. Develop the pieces, and c3 here. And now after knight c6, bishop c4. And here, e5 wants to prevent this d4 advance, and obviously defend that pawn in e6. And here d4 anyway. And so the idea, I'm assuming, being takes, knight takes, and rook d1. And if bishop here, bishop to c5, we see bishop e3. And it would appear, and certainly, that Black is dropping a piece here. And any kind of complicating tactics with b5 simply don't seem to work. Even bishop e6 or bishop b5 was also possible as an attempt to complicate things, muddy the waters. But this takes, bishop's on c5 is hanging, and now black is not down in exchange, he's down a rook. So d4, good tactical awareness, and go ahead and free up the position. Get these rooks in the game. And bishop d6. Sure, I mean, you got to develop your pieces. Bishop needs to get out. This rook either goes to the center or possibly goes over to the king side, which it does. And after bishop e3, rook h8. Trying to set up some kind of cheapos. So, if I'm playing this game, I'm thinking for white, I just want to trade some pieces, and I want to roll these pawns in the center. If I'm playing for black, I want to avoid trades at all costs because I'm down material, and I want to figure out how to just kind of cheapo, or how can I get some counterplay. Either you want to set up some cheapo tactics, or you want to try to get some legitimate counterplay. And so I like the rook h8 idea because he's got to attack. I mean, you want to attack. I mean, if you are, black essentially is in a hopelessly lost position. He's down in exchange, he's down a pawn. But these kind of positions happen all the time in practical tournament games. And believe it or not, the losing side here can often make a dramatic comeback because people tend to let down their guard so much when they're up material and the position is just overwhelming, and they start relaxing and acting stupid. They just start making terrible moves. So I like the rook h8 idea. Playing on the queen side with these pawns, not gonna do anything. So I like the rook h8 idea, and maybe I would have played maybe e4 and shoot for f4 and try to roll these kingside pawns, create some confusion on the king side, and attack at all costs. But with d5, okay, d5. Again, I want to reroute here for black. I would try to reroute all my pieces to the king side, but played knight a5 and b3, and maybe here I gotta like knight takes. The way this bishop just goes back, the next move, and this knight on a5 is looking silly. Take it. And black has the two bishops here. Probably not going to draw because white is simply going to march this pawn and weaken up this b6 and a7 pawns. But you never know. But anyway, didn't happen. So you don't want to trade pieces, is understandable. But after b3, b5, trying to complicate things after e4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes h2, and king f1. We saw bishop e5, rook ac1, and f5. And after f5, bishop d3, and black has kind of run out of counterplay. F4, dropping another pawn, bishop g4, trying to threaten mate, but after f3, mate is going to be simply impossible, and black decided to resign here. Understandably, as I hate to resign myself, but down 1, 2, and 3 pawns, as well as an exchange, and not to mention this bishop is hanging, So black's going to lose a piece, and he's going to be down 3 pawns. So it's about time to throw in the towel. So an interesting game, the first game that I could dig up by ChessTweets, and knight g5 in the Ruy Lopez. So an interesting idea. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net presenting some analysis from a game from apparently the last move forever ago, as stated on ChessTweets.com. And thanks for listening.